Stay Sane with Jane, the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds, bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation. Each session includes a magical guided meditation led by Jane or one of her special guests. Here's your host, Jane Scanlan.
Hello and welcome to episode 31 of Stay Sane with Jane. Today we are interviewing Dr. Liz, who runs a communication agency and writes for clients, writes blogs, speeches, sound bites, marketing campaigns. She is also an architect part-time as a lecturer at the University of Wales, Trinity St David, and loves sketching classes. I've seen lots of her sketches, architectural sketches online, and they are absolutely beautiful. I would love you to sketch my house one day. Let me introduce Dr. Liz.
Hello, Jane.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, good. Busy.
Fantastic.
But
It's
good.
great to have you on. Can you tell us a little bit about the woman behind the communications business and the architecture job?
Okay, so about 25 years ago, I was working at the RIBA in London, the Royal Institute of British Architects, which is the membership organisation for architects in the UK. Mm-hmm. And they promoted me to become director of the Royal Society of Architects in Wales, which meant I moved to Cardiff and I basically became head of architectural activities for members in Wales. And after about 5 years of doing that job, so I was employed in that job. Mm-hmm. After about 5 years, I was made redundant from that job, and I sort of thought, what can I do with my life? What is the next stage for me? And I tried to get another job, but I was probably too overqualified, really. I wrote a list of all the skills that I had. So, I can hire people, I can fire people, and I can fold up raffle tickets, but you can't make money folding up raffle tickets, So I wrote a list of all the things that I liked doing and could do, and then crossed off the things. So I didn't really want to have to fire anybody. So I crossed that off my list. Mm-hmm. And then from that, it became apparent that the areas that I liked and the areas that could grow was marketing, social media, communications. So that's how come Communication Crossroads was born. That's the name of my business, which is a communications agency. And then when that got developed at its height, I was able to engage a series of subcontractors to take on the bulk of the work. And that meant that I could go off and pursue my other passion, which is the architecture side. My PhD's in architecture. And I was able to get some teaching, first at Cardiff and now in Swansea, and that has led to my name being out there for architecture as well.
Fantastic. And from memory, do you have a colourful house on the outside? Did you paint your house purple?
That's correct. It's painted lilac and the garden has got pink stripes in it.
Love it. So how is life in Wales?
So what Wales is actually, it's quite different. I'm from London originally, and living in Wales, we have another level of political decisions, if you like, because we have devolution. So we have our own parliament. Decisions that get made in Westminster sometimes are relevant here and sometimes not relevant because we have devolution. So I've been working running a small architectural practice for the last sort of 18 to 20 months, and the planning guidance is completely different. It's devolved. So what you might think, is going on in London in sort of planning permissions is different here.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I when I was made redundant in 2012, which was actually within 3 months, I was made redundant, handed in my PhD, had my mock viva, and then had the real viva. I was thinking about, shall I go back to London and, find a job properly for my grade and all that stuff. And actually, I thought I live 20 minutes from the beach here. Why would I go back to London? So that was
Yes.
why I stayed. And, and then the business developed. And the business is, when I worked in the RIBA in Wales, I attended a Welsh course at Machynlleth, so I learned intensive Welsh for a week, and
Wow.
we had clients, members who were Welsh and only wanted to communicate in Welsh. These days, I don't really have any clients who are Welsh speakers, and so I lost that ability to communicate. But it doesn't matter, because if I wanted to go back to my learning of Welsh, I could probably pick it up, but I'm not that fluent anymore. But it does,
So it sounds to me like you're very you're very intellectual. You love learning.
Well, I do, but when I finished the PhD, I did think to myself I should try and stop now, because I felt I'd done enough. I have a Prince qualification, which is a project management qualification, and I've done also, when you start teaching, you are encouraged to try and develop. I've done a thing called teaching in the lifelong learning sector, which is a sort of MVQ about how to teach, the mechanics of teaching. And when you start teaching, even at university level, they do encourage you to do some kind of qualification, so like how to interact with students and marking abilities and that kind of stuff. So I have done that, but I haven't really done any formal qualifications since, because I just think
big PhDs are massive. How long did it take you?
So I did it part-time. I was at work at the same time, and it was about a subject that was I worked in the RIBA, and it was about the gold medal of the RIBA, which is given out once a year to somebody who influences the field of architecture. So it was basically trawling through the RIBA archives to bring everything together. And then in 2019, I was lucky enough to get my PhD published. So it is available if you are sufficiently interested in architecture medals and prizes. You can buy it from Amazon and Waterstones and things if you want to.
Fantastic. Fabulous. So how did you get the title of this show is Crafting Effective Communication for Business and Beyond with Dr. Liz. So how did you get started in the communications field?
So when I worked in the RIBA in London, I was called a communications manager, which is a kind of title that enveloped everything. And I was basically responsible for sending out communications to the membership in London, and also the awards came under me. So I went to see probably, 100 buildings a year for design awards with hotshot juries and people, and then had to organise the ceremonies and events and all that stuff. And in that, I mean, I can name drop if you like. I met Joseph Fiennes, went to his house in West London. We met Jenny Eclair in Dulwich. Kevin MacLeod became a friend through that whole process of the awards programs. Photograph of me knocking around with Kevin MacLeod somewhere online. So communications, I am known as a people person. I network hugely. I've got a huge following on, LinkedIn. I'm dithering about, I do have a TikTok account, and I'm dithering about whether to actually say something. Loads of people follow me and I don't actually say anything. And I was thinking about how to make architecture more accessible through social media, because it's seen as a bit elitist. So I'm trying to do that. But how did I get started? So communication was a thing that I thought was a place to grow. And, communication is a huge basket of many things. And I in London, we started doing e-newsletters and mail shots and that kind of thing. And then when I set up my own business, communications had moved on. And,
it's moving significantly, isn't it? I mean, every week something new is coming out.
So if you follow me, if you want to connect with me, or listeners want to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter or X, or whatever it's called, I'm often putting out stories, and I try and put every 3 days I sort of cycle it. So I have an architecture story, a communication story, and a social media story. And so I'm really on the cusp of whatever is going on, keeping my fingers on the pulse. And I'm really doing that for probably every field, every person that I'm in. Like I had a load of meetings yesterday in the university, and I was like, oh, have you seen this? This is happening. And people are like, really? They're not. Somehow people aren't as switched on as that.
You've got your finger on the pulse. I can tell you,
Yeah.
I most certainly don't, unless it's for kind of some tech updates and stuff like that for business owners. But otherwise, I really steer clear of the news or anything like that, much to my mother's absolute dismay. But in a business like yours, it is really important. And tell me, why would it be important for me to know more about what's going on in my industry, and for other people listening, maybe they're a bit like me, they've shunned the news and in their own little happy bubble going along. So why is it so important to know what's going on around you?
If you find out what's going on around you, and you maybe post a story maybe once or twice a week, it demonstrates to your audience that you are an authority on your subject. So people will come to me and use my business because they can see that I know what's going on. And in LinkedIn particularly, I use that as a business tool. A story will come up about communications. So say, a new platform's coming out and they're looking for people to just discuss it, and I will make a comment, and then people will see that and say, okay, so she knows what she's talking about. I can trust her with my business information. So always, when I do a social media campaign for every single client I've ever worked with since I set the business up, I always say to them, you must talk about the news. You must talk about what's going on in your field, even though your account is about, I don't know, say you're a coach and it's about what you deliver in your coaching business. You still have to say, I know what else is going on, and this is relevant. Do you remember an incident when Madonna, I think she was singing, she was either at the Grammys or the Brits or something, I don't know. Anyway, in the middle of her set, she fell off the stage. Okay. And she recovered so well that she was able to get up and go back to singing. Okay. Yes. And at the time I was working, had a client who was a personal trainer. And I said, we're going to post that story because we're going to make a comment about how fit she was. She works with a personal trainer, that she could then get back on the stage and do that. And he was like, but I'm not her personal trainer. I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're a personal trainer. She uses a personal trainer. That demonstrated in her set how she could do that. And we did that. I put this post out and it went bananas, because I was basically saying, this is what Madonna did. Look, if you use a personal trainer like the one like X, so yeah, you just have to find the relevant stories that are applicable to your business and put them in.
Fantastic. And that makes total sense, because otherwise it's just the business owner talking about their business, their offers, them, right?
Yeah, it's a bit, social media, I've always thought, is like mud on a wall. If you just put posts out, they just plop on the wall and then fall down. But now and again, you need to have something that's gold that sticks on the wall. So a story that's relevant that you can then apply to your business, it goes viral. And another example is I worked for a graphic designer client, and he was in working in Hereford, and it was around the time when the Turner film came out about J&W Turner, and I started the conversation, and I said, do you like Turner? This film is coming out, thinking we could grab on that. And he said, no, I hate Turner. He just sat in one place and just painted the same thing and then coloured it over and over again. It's very boring. I don't like Turner. I said, okay, all right. So let's run an anti-Turner campaign. Okay. Yeah. So we did this when the film came out, and there was loads of publicity, which we piggybacked onto. Yeah. And then turned those stories into, do you really like Turner? Why is this? And my campaign went viral again. And this client got work out of it. He got work in America from somebody who also hated Turner and thought our campaign was fantastic. So you can be supportive of stories, like I did the same as what Madonna does, or you can be negative. But you've got to be like, when we created the no turner campaign,
Yeah.
you've got to turn it into a way that's not going to offend people.
Yes, tongue in cheek,
Yeah, yeah,
like, yeah, yeah. You're not
yeah,
totally putting someone down and being negative.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's really, really great ideas for the audience. So how do you get your stories? Do you I think from memory, from when I saw you talking, a little memory light bulb moment's coming up, that you have alerts on Google set up. Am I
Yeah.
right?
So you can get alerts set on Google. They work on keywords. So,
Mhm.
I might have a keyword or phrase like social media or communications. I also just use the news, like put into news stories, put my search terms into Google and see what comes out. You have to be very wary of your sources, though. You have to use only credible sources, and you
Mm.
just get to know what they are. And another tip is do not use anything that sits behind a paywall.
Ooh,
So,
what's
for example, the Financial Times have some great stories, not about finance, about the things I'm
Mhm.
looking for, but they sit behind a paywall, which means you can only read like one paragraph and then you have to pay to read the rest of the story.
Yes, 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 yes.
And
People have sent me
immediately,
links like that before. Yeah,
immediately, you use anything that sits behind a paywall. That client or the person who's reading your feed clicks on the story, goes to read it, and thinks, "Oh, I can't read anymore," and then just loses interest in you.
yeah.
So therefore they're not going to come back to the client. They
Hmm.
they're not going to think this person is knowledgeable. They're going to think this person is stupid because now I have to pay to read this story, and they're
And
going
I
to
don't
switch
want
off.
to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mm.
so you have to be, and that just comes over time. You kind of find out who sits behind a paywall and who doesn't. Also, like I say, you have to look at what are credible sources. So some people say, "Well, I'll never ever quote from, I don't know, the Daily Express or the Daily Mirror,"
Yeah,
because they don't think they're credible, or because, and I just think those kind of stories I'd only really post if I was desperate. And then
yeah.
you can always, if something sits behind a paywall, so there was something came up yesterday. It was a great story, but it was behind a US paywall, and I thought, okay, never mind. So what I did was I took the title of the story, and then I made it into proper English rather than a dramatic headline, so I knew what the story was
Mhm.
about, and put that back into Google, and then I got the same story out from an available web source to use for the client.
Interesting. Yes. Oh, great top tips. We haven't even got to that section
Oh,
yet, Dr. Liz.
okay.
So, how do people find you? First of all, you've mentioned LinkedIn and Twitter are probably your main sources.
Yeah, I do use Facebook, but it's really for, I don't really use it for business.
Your
You can
business, yeah.
communicate with me on Facebook, but I'm a bit not recluse, but my Facebook feed is full of doggy stories and sketches and
Yes.
yeah, the
So,
social side. So I don't
yeah.
really use that.
So, if we're going to find you, if listeners are going to find you,
So
what are
I
they
do.
searching for on LinkedIn
So
and X?
embarrassingly, if you put Dr. Liz Walder into Google, probably 98% of the references are me. And I'm often
Fantastic.
talking online. I do have a blog, although I need to update it. I don't have time to write my own blog. And I also talk a part of the Architecture Social, which is an online podcast and platform that we
Mhm.
use for students. I'm a moderator for them. I have a website for the business, which is communicationxroads.com, and you can have a look in there, and then you can contact me through that way. LinkedIn, I'm very active in. I've probably got about, I don't know, about 5,900 connections, that I've
Mhm.
collected over the years, and I know every single one, and I often interact with people, so I'm quite happy for people if they want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I was when I got the PhD, I was told by an architecture colleague in the States that it was very important to have the doctor part in my name rather than
Mhm.
having the letters at the end. As a woman, because it's hard to achieve, get up the ladders,
Yeah,
make a statement by having it. So on LinkedIn, I'm Dr. Liz Walder, and then there's some letters after my name. So
fantastic.
yeah, so connect with me in LinkedIn is a good platform if you want to engage with me, I'd say.
Fab. And I've just jumped onto your website there as well, communicationxroads.com. scanlan.com. And there's obviously a contact us button, a working with us. And what is that working journey? What does it look like? So say I connect with you on LinkedIn or via your website. What happens next?
So what a lot of people come to me is they say, I want to get onto social media. That's it. That's all they say. And then I have to have a meeting with them, and that can be online, it can be face to face, and just find out a bit more about their business. But by the time I go to that meeting, I've done some homework. So I've looked them up, I've found out what their kind of client base is, what their business is about, and different platforms work for different people and different businesses. So
Agree.
a big mistake that people often make is, like, for example, Twitter is maybe dying with the current developments and everything, and so suddenly Threads was created, which is a text-based platform, and all these people who thought, oh, we're not on Twitter, but let's be on Threads. And then some businesses should not be on Threads. It's not the right platform for the people who are the decision makers in their client base. So part of my early recommendations to a client is what platforms you should be in. So you just heard me say a second ago, I'm on Facebook, but I don't use it for business. And that's a choice because my business is more B2B, and my B2B sits in LinkedIn primarily, and then maybe a bit of Twitter as well.
Yeah. And with Twitter or X or Threads, I think you've got to be quite quick-witted and one-liners and things like that. I'm not. That's why I'm not on it.
So there's a lot of journalists sit on Twitter
for me.
But I mean, somebody sent me something yesterday, which is Blue Sky, which is another interactive, and they're hoping that Blue Sky is going to take over from Twitter, and it's different stable, different CEO and things. So I don't know. All of these things build on each other. So I'll have that conversation, and then from that, basically there and then, I sit and make a social media strategy for you there and then, like how much you should post, what you should be saying, when you should be saying it, because different people are looking at different times of the day. So before COVID, the majority of people would be looking at their phones at either going home time or at lunchtime.
Yes.
Because that's when they're out of the office and traveling. COVID changed all that because people started working from home. And so the timing of your communications should be
all the time.
So different times. And then now we're in a bit of a more of a hybrid situation about, who's working from home, or they're doing a hybrid working. So some days in the office, some days at home. So that means that you can't be so regular and prescriptive throughout the week. You might want to change the times you're posting, or when you're posting different stories. And then once I've created all of that, then I create some homegrown, what we call bank posts, which are basically the posts that go out that are about your service and your product. And then that bank of posts, I probably create, I don't know, maybe 30, 60, something like that in number. And they all have to have an image, a call to action, and a piece of information in them. And then when I've written that, that goes to the client for approval. And then I would start posting out. I create the artwork myself, dependent on whatever the theme of the campaign or the post is, and we get going. And then I tend to keep the content fresher, so it's always at the top of Google when you're doing searches for the client. Then I recreate those postings every 2 to 3 months. And then what normally happens is clients sign up with me for a social media campaign or ongoing social media presence. And then after 6 months, I always say the contract's for 6 months, because in 6 months you can see a return. Anything less than that is very hard to see a return. And after 6 months, I send them a little note and I say, would you like to renew? And they all say yes, mostly. And then they renew. And I always see the client at the front, and like I'd have a meeting with them at 6 months. I send them a, would you like to renew? And they just renew, and I never see them again. So although I'm a people person and I do have a lot of interaction, maybe online meetings, or I have email exchange, I don't actually ever see them in the flesh again. And I've got one client I work for in Belfast that I do run social media for, and I think I last saw him in the flesh about 10 years ago. No, maybe more, because we do have online meetings, and like this in a room online, but we don't actually meet in the flesh. And he just trusts me to get on with the campaigns.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
Well, if you've had clients for 10
yeah,
years,
yeah.
then it shows you are very
Well,
good at what you do.
so Crossroads was started in 2013,
Hmm.
and I'll just share a little thing with you here. When I set up the business, I came across a company called Social Junction, which I thought was a really cool name. But the
Yes.
problem was that Social Junction did social media, and they were in Birmingham, which is a
Hmm.
bit too geographically close to me to nick their name.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I really like that. And how am I going to create that for my business? So I came up with a sort of a whole load of words for my business name. And I
Hmm.
wanted to have alliteration. And so communication, what roads and things begin with C, which is
Hmm.
how come Communication Crossroads was born. And then the strap line, which is about crafting creative communication, is again alliteration, which people remember.
Yes.
And when I say and business and beyond, that's because secretly Doctor Who is filmed here in Cardiff. So, and
Oh,
Doctor Who is in the beyond. So that's a
yes.
sort of joke about that, but also it encompasses everything. So, um, yeah, so that's about how you choose your company name, if you're setting up, and how you're going to put your bits and pieces together. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's always interesting, isn't it, about setting up company names. With mine, Harmony Business Academy, harmony is one of my values and something I bring to my coaching because I want,
mm,
I'm kind of coaching people, mentoring them and their business to be aligned and in
that's a really
harmony.
good name. When I saw that, and I thought, oh yes, harmony is really about sort of like nice, positive vibes and bringing people together. So I thought it was a good name. Yeah.
Yes, and it's all based around holistic and spiritual and wellness
Mm.
businesses. So, but yeah, essentially, it is a business academy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's interesting, isn't it? The way we choose our names and things like that. And I always remember the Ron Seal ad. Ron Seal is some sort of paint people that are
That's the thing,
listening
you
in the
paint on the
UK.
fence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it said it does what it says on the tin. And
But you've got to think that the audience of Ron Seal is most predominantly men, and
yes,
men
it's
need to be
perfect.
told what it does.
It does what it says on the tin. Yeah. And that's what I say to all of my clients. Your business name, your offer, it needs to do what it
Yeah.
says on the tin.
So the other reason I chose my business name was I did not want to call it Liz Walder Communications, because I thought if I ever sell a business, I don't want to sell my name. So
Yeah, that's a
I,
good point.
and I have I when I was made redundant, I went on a series of courses that the Welsh government ran, and they were about creating work after redundancy. And one of
Hmm.
the courses was about choosing your name and also your colours. So the colour of my business is purple. And when I met Jane, actually, before we met at a conference some years ago, I was wearing purple. And she's already mentioned that my house is painted lilac. So, you can see a
Lilac.
theme
Yes.
here.
What is Dr. Liz's favourite colour?
Yeah, yeah. I did have a purple car for a bit, actually. If I was going to promote my business, networking opportunities, a new network that I had not been to before, I would definitely dress in purple. And I've got purple business cards, and people remember you
They remember,
because of that.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And it's having those, it's having little things that really stand out
yeah,
that
yeah,
make a
really.
difference.
Yeah, so I've never given away, purple pens or given anything. What I have to my subcontractors, actually,
Yeah.
um, but I've never given away like actual things that are purple. But it's just being, like you say, like having little things within your offering that makes
Yeah.
sense. And then
That all
people
link
also,
together, that
yeah,
are
people sort of
congruent.
subconsciously see it as well.
Yeah, they do. They do. I I've been changing over my systems over the last few months, which is a massive, massive tech job.
Undertaking.
Oh my gosh, but it's going to be worth it. But it's also helped me just look at how congruent I'm being. Is the wording congruent all the way through the different systems, emails and offerings, etc.? Are the colours, are the this, are the that?
Mm.
Yeah, because we're communicating on so many different levels, aren't we?
Yeah.
You mentioned artwork. We're
Did I?
communicating through artwork as in
Oh, branding,
like
you mean?
Facebook branding, the
Yeah.
posts and things like that. We're communicating on all of these levels, aren't we? So people want to see your post and whatever the artwork or
Yeah. So I
the
mean, it's
picture
very
is, it needs to be linked.
and consistent. And
Consistent, yeah.
if you're like me, so I'm sitting on maybe 3 platforms for business. I need to have the same avatar on all platforms. I need to have the same um, branding, same company name on all platforms, because the person who looks at me in LinkedIn and then thinks, oh, she's also on Twitter, I'll go and look at her on Twitter. They want to know, they want to be not
Yes.
trust, but they want to be confident, I suppose, that I
Yeah.
am the same person. And if I have a different picture, then they're not going to realize it's me. I am one and the same.
Yes, I know. I often joke that if people see me doing the school run or whatever, they'd never know it was me from my
Yes.
profile pictures.
I
Like
mean,
a
it is worth, if you can afford it, it is worth having a good photographer take some portrait photos of you. And I have a profile in LinkedIn, and I have a profile in academic profile, and I also have a Twitter profile, and all of those are formal photographs, and
Same with
when you submit for a conference or you submit for a publication, you have to have a picture of yourself. And if you have a formal picture to use, that's one you can just take out, and it's worth putting the money into a photographer at the beginning of your business, and then maybe updating that picture every sort of 5 or 6 years.
Yes, yeah. And trying to look the same if you go networking.
Dye out the grey, basically. Yeah.
Or just stop dying. Just stop.
No, I have a birthday on Sunday, so I am a very grey age, and I am trying to prevent age from coming. I don't have any wrinkles because I laugh so much. I'm serious in business, but I laugh
Yes.
as well, and so I'm dyeing my hair to get rid of the grey.
We are both Virgos. It's my birthday
Yes, I know, you're almost my
tomorrow.
twin. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is really great. I've already started the celebrations, start early.
I'm starting tomorrow. I said I'm going to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, and then Thursday onwards, 4 days of celebration.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, amazing. So, can you give us any more advice and top tips about communication, effective communication for business and beyond?
So what I'd say a really, really key one is that in the digital age in which we sit now, you should have a website and B, a social media presence. That's with a given. But there are some people who don't have that. You should also have a website that you actively change. It is not something that you set up and then you just look at and people walk past it. You need to go in and polish it and move everything around from time to time and put new
Because that
content in.
keeps you up the top
Yeah.
of Google, right?
Yeah.
The little edits and the
Yeah.
changes. Is doing a blog enough, or do we need to be doing more?
So if you write a blog, what do you do with your blog?
Well, that would go on the website,
Okay,
and
so
it would be shared on social media and on emails.
and then you need to keep it updated. So if you're writing a blog every month, you need to extract content from it, put that in your social feeds every week. So you're sending people to your blog site from your blog from your social media, because a
Every
blog
week.
is another thing that if you just do it
Yes.
once and then shut the lid on it, who's going to go and look at it? And you do all that work.
Yes.
You can, if you use WordPress, which is a free software for designing websites, and you have your website sitting in that, there's a plugin within WordPress. Sorry, a bit technical here, but there's a plugin.
No, love it. But my audience might not, but I do.
For Twitter, certainly for Twitter, which and probably for some other platforms now. So you can get a feed when you put something into Twitter. You put this plugin on your website, and the feed goes into your website. So you're posting on Twitter, your social media, and the plugin is picking it up. So therefore your feeds from Twitter are going onto your website. A lot of people will have that on the front, and that means that your website's always topical because it's always changing and there's always new content going in without you actually having to do, double the work.
Yes. And so does that, because I had a plugin, like a social media plugin on one of my websites. I haven't put it on the new one I've built, but I've
Wow.
not launched it yet, so I shall put it
Well,
on.
I would recommend that.
And does it, the posts I'm doing on, I use Facebook for business. So the posts that I'm doing on Facebook, if they're updating on this social media plugin, so is that telling Google that my website is updating every single
Yes.
day?
That's what I mean. It's getting new
Amazing.
content. So yes, and then you will go up the search engine rankings, because what everybody needs is when you put the name of the business in to be on the front page of Google. And don't ever pay for that. You don't need to pay for that. You can just do enough stuff yourself to get there. So if anybody offers you payment of things for, other than going up the rankings, you don't need to do that. You don't need to pay. You can just do things yourself to get up the rankings.
So the social media plugin and also the monthly blog.
Yeah, minimum a month, I would say. I've got an infographic I can send to people if they tips for blogging if they want. No more than 400 words. Put in some story, make it relevant to people's lives. Answer a question. What do people want? So, I might tell a story about communicating with somebody in the street or something, and then people can identify with that in their business or whatever. And then there's always a call to action in there, which will be come to my website, engage with me. And a picture, and what I've found over the years is when you write blogs, if you have a really appropriate title, it hooks people in before they even start reading. So we did a story. I used to have a hairdresser client, and they wanted to write a blog, and it was about apprenticeships. And there's a song called "Going Back to My Roots."
Oh yes.
Okay. So we use that as the headline as the title for this blog, Going Back to My Roots. And suddenly people were like, well, they're a hairdresser, so they go back to their roots, but they're also going back to their roots because they're talking about apprenticeships. And another tip, if you're looking for blog titles, use song titles, lyrics, proverbs, well-known phrases. Shakespeare is another source of things. I mean, I've just written a conference. I'm about to submit for a conference in next year, and I like to use sort of sound bites of text. So this conference is going to be about the Eurovision Song Contest's influence on architecture and cities. And so the title of it at the moment is All Kinds of Everything, and then unpacking how Eurovision has affected cities. So All Kinds of Everything was a hit in Eurovision, and people will remember it because they think, oh yes, I know that title. And so it's like just being clever with words. And that's really, I've ended up talking about architecture, but that's what my business communication Crossroads is: being clever with words, being effective.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, fantastic. We have learnt so much today.
Okay.
We have. Now, what else was I going to ask you? So with the communication business, there are no boundaries. You can work with people globally because we're in an online market now, and we're talking kind of social media and online-y.
So I always was in an online market. You have to be, there are some places where social media is banned. So, I'm thinking of particularly areas in the Middle East, and there's a platform called Alibaba, which is a kind of Chinese based thing. And I kind of don't really work in that sector. I tend to work mostly for Western businesses, or businesses who are based in the West, but have a presence in maybe the East or the Middle East. I have worked for somebody who was a client based in Cardiff, but their audience was in Dubai. And what that meant for me was that I had to review the posting times, because the the working week is different in Dubai to how it is in the UK.
Yes.
But I mean, I mentioned before I've got a client in Belfast. I used to have a client in Hong Kong, and now and again I'd have to have a Hong Kong day when I worked a completely different set of hours from everybody else because I had to have meetings online with this person and his
Yes.
team. I launched a book for somebody in Singapore, but I was not in Singapore. I was in Cardiff, and the
Yeah.
person who wrote the book was also not in Singapore. He was in Northern Ireland. So anything is possible. And I mean, I read quite a lot about mobile communities and, van life and people living on barges and, housing crisis issues.
Yes.
And all of those people, if that's a lifestyle that you want to be in without bricks and mortar, then you need to be in a social media digital platform marketing, because that's
Yes.
a mobile market that you can deal with. And I'm talking today from my home office in Cardiff, but I could have been in West Wales, I could have been in Bolivia, I could have been in Edinburgh. It's and since COVID it has become acceptable to be working from home or from a mobile platform.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's the beauty about the modern world now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, English
Has
is an
its pros and
international language,
cons.
so we're okay there.
Yeah.
But I've spoken at conferences all over the world. I'm international, so, and I just feel that you don't have to be restricted by just being in one place.
Yeah. Yeah, the beauty it is with the Harmony Business Academy, that's all online. But my therapies business, Cherish, Transform and Upgrade, that is face to face and online. But I just love face to face too much to give it
Well,
up completely,
yes.
unless I decide to go gallivanting again around the world, and then
I mean, the teaching,
I'll have to give it up.
when COVID came, we all were forced to work online and teach online. And so we set up proper home offices, and I work off 3 screens and proper microphone setups and all of that stuff. Since COVID has kind of maybe died a death, but I hear it's coming back.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, that one.
I still teach online if required, but I can also go to university because it's not that far from here. But it doesn't preclude me from giving a paper. I spoke at a conference in 2021 in Florida, but obviously COVID was here and I was not in Florida. I was here at home and I had to have a special backdrop and everything. So I think the the mobile issue is great if that's a field that you feel comfortable in, but I can't prescribe it for everybody, and my working life is these 2 strands, the communication business, which overlaps into the lecturing, which overlaps into the communications business, and I'm very good at compartmentalizing my life. So this week we're on Wednesday. One day the first day of the week I was on a communications day working with my clients. Yesterday I was on an academic day working with the university, and I'm able to just switch between. But you have to be, I know that that's a thing that not everybody is good at, to be able to just stop and start and move from sort of like almost a room to another room of different work.
Yeah, it is. I think pretty much everybody that listens to the show has different hats that they put on. And I love it. I actually thrive on that kind of pivoting, as long as I haven't got too many plates.
Too many plates up there.
Then it's like, oh, overwhelming. No, thank you. But most of the time I like having that little bit of kind of excitement, not quite knowing what's going to happen next when I jump on a call with somebody or when somebody comes to my house for a treatment. I love it. It's fun. It's exciting.
I mean, like you, I thrive on it, and I'm able to move from place to place, client to client. I started off my working life after my MA, and I had 5 days a week in 5 different locations with 5 different clients. that I went to, and I was employed by all 5 people. And it was got a bit confusing for them, perhaps, but not for me.
Not for you, yes.
And eventually, I pushed one into making me 2 days a week and left someone else. And eventually that became 3 and 2. And then eventually, my mother used to say, when are you going to get a proper full-time job? She said that for about 8 years.
Yes. Oh, I think...
And I still haven't done that, have I? I still don't have one proper full-time job.
Bored.
Yeah, I
I
think I probably
certainly
would.
did when I was I felt stuck in an office. That was my last kind of job. And it was the same thing each week.
And also,
it's too much.
Having the variety, the 2 lives that I lead. I do have overlap with people and clients, but I do have, it is great because it is, I see I'm able to bring tips from one into the other, and I love the variety. Yeah, definitely thrive on that.
Variety is definitely the spice of life. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Liz. It's been an absolute pleasure to interview you. You have shared so many top tips with us about effective communication. I hope everybody has been making notes. And I will put above or below, whether you're listening to this or whether you're watching it, the links to get connected with Dr. Liz will be there. You can Google her, and also it's communicationxroads.com is the website, and you can search for her on LinkedIn, Dr. Liz Walder.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you so much.
Stay Sane with Jane, the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds, bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation. Each session includes a magical guided meditation led by Jane or one of her special guests. Here's your host, Jane Scanlan.
Thank you for listening to that wonderful interview with Dr. Liz Walder. That was episode 31 of Stay Sane with Jane. And we are going to shift gears now, moving into the mindful meditation section. Hello, my name's Jane Scanlan, and thank you for joining us for the meditation session. Today, we are going to be tuning into a 5-minute standing meditation. So, why is this standing meditation such a wonderful tool? Well, it can be one of the most powerful ways to slow down our minds. If you've got a very overactive mind that's constantly chattering, then moving your body or doing something with your body whilst meditating and being mindful can be one of the easiest ways to just shut down that chatter. Okay, so before we begin, let's tune in to what a standing meditation means and brings up for us. I invite you to tune in to your belly, chest, and head. To see what feelings pop up, any emotions that are associated with Any old stories? And what is that chatter going on in your head right now? So let's begin. Standing meditation is one of the most powerful ways to get our minds to slow down. Think of what our bodies are used to doing when they're simply standing. We're usually standing in line, looking at something, having an alert conversation, or just drifting off into nothing. Standing brings our bodies and minds into alertness. In this way, standing meditation is one of the quickest ways to bring ourselves into the present. It's an excellent method to recharge your batteries. And if you've never done a standing meditation before, don't do it for more than 5 minutes at a time. You can get longer with this practice once you become familiar with it. Okay, so find a broomstick, a walking stick, a mop, the back of a chair, something that you can use to make sure you don't lose your balance. Hold on to that object and place your feet hip width apart. Now be mindful, most people think their hips are way wider than they actually are. So just tune in to your legs going straight down, hip width apart, your feet grounding on the ground or the floor beneath you. And I invite you to look straight ahead and close your eyes halfway, but not all the way. Just soften them. Tune in to your breathing for a few moments. Feeling the lift and fall of your belly and chest. Focus simply on your feet on the ground and of breathing. If you find it hard to focus, you can silently or quietly repeat this beloved meditative verse. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Allow any emotions to be in the room with you, but do not force them to stay or to go. When your mind wanders into thoughts and stories, gently and kindly bring it back to focusing on your breath. And on the feeling and experience of your body standing still. You've already been standing for a couple of minutes. take a few deep breaths and feel the grounding beneath your feet. And the breath going in and out. If you notice any tension or resistance, just breathe into that area and let go a little bit more with each out breath. Softening in to this standing meditation. Just staying with the breath and being mindful of any thoughts or senses that arise. And just like that, we are nearly at the end of our 5 minutes. Taking a few deep breaths and inviting energy and alertness into the body and mind. Feeling your batteries recharged. You can start to wiggle those fingers and toes, moving the hips and the shoulders. Be gentle with yourself as you return to real life. You've slowed down more than you might think. Your body, mind, and soul is so grateful for that little bit of time that you have spent meditating, connecting, and being present. It has been an absolute pleasure to guide you through this meditation, the 5-minute standing mindful meditation. My name is Jane Scanlan, and I look forward to seeing you next week.